My name is Diane. I'm 54, a widow, and I've spent the last few years living a quiet, almost invisible life. Most days have a rhythm to them, one that rarely changes. Mornings start with coffee on my porch, looking out over the small garden I've carefully maintained. I work part-time at the library, sorting books and helping patrons find what they need. And in the evenings, I'm usually curled up with a novel and a glass of red wine. It's peaceful, but if I'm honest, it's lonely. A few weeks ago, I was doing my weekly grocery run at the local store. A mundane ritual I'd hardly thought twice about. That's when I first saw him. I was reaching for a can of soup on a high shelf, struggling a little when a voice behind me said, "Need some help with that?" I turned and saw a man, maybe in his late 20s or early 30s, tall and effortlessly charming with sandy hair and a gentle smile. He looked like he belonged on the cover of one of those glossy lifestyle magazines, except his face was so open and friendly, it put me at ease right away. I laughed, a little embarrassed. "Yes, it seems my reach isn't what it used to be." He chuckled and handed me the can, giving me a warm smile. "They really should organize these shelves better. I'm Evan, by the way." "Diane," I replied, smiling back. What I thought would be a fleeting encounter turned into a lively conversation. We walked down the aisle together, chatting about our favorite foods, laughing about our shared dislike of those self-checkout machines that never seemed to work properly. It was so natural, so easy that I almost forgot he was much younger than me. That day, I walked out of the store feeling lighter than I had in years. And as I replayed our conversation in my mind, I found myself hoping I might run into him again, though I didn't dare believe I actually would. The next Saturday, I found myself lingering in the grocery store longer than usual, secretly hoping I might run into Evan again. I wandered up and down the aisles, half focused on my shopping list and half on the entrance, feeling silly but oddly excited. And then, as if on cue, there he was, walking toward me, flashing that same easy smile that had stayed with me all week. "Diane!" "Hey!" he called out, a warmth in his voice that immediately put me at ease. We ended up chatting by the produce section, laughing about the odd shapes of the vegetables and joking about our lack of culinary skills. Before I knew it, we'd been talking for almost an hour. The conversation was so natural, and there was a genuine warmth in his words that made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in years. Over time, our casual meetings turned into planned ones. We'd meet for coffee at a little cafe nearby or stroll around the park, talking about everything under the sun. I learned that Evan was a music teacher at the local high school, and that he had a passion for playing the guitar. He spoke with such enthusiasm about his students, and the joy he found in helping them discover music. He even promised to teach me a few chords someday, although we laughed, knowing I had two left hands when it came to instruments. One evening, as we sat outside the cafe watching the sunset, he looked over at me and said, "You know, Diane, you're easy to be around. I don't think I've met anyone I could talk to like this in a long time." His words caught me off guard, and I felt a flutter in my chest I hadn't expected. I laughed it off, feeling my cheeks warm, but the feeling lingered. It was in those moments, his laughter, his stories, his thoughtful gaze, that I realized just how much light he brought into my life. Our friendship grew deeper with every encounter. It was as if Evan had stepped into my life at just the right moment, illuminating corners of my world I hadn't even realized had dimmed. I found myself thinking about him often, and each time we met, that familiar flutter returned stronger than ever. One evening we met at a small jazz lounge he'd suggested. I hadn't been out like this in years, and as the music filled the air, I felt a little thrill, something I'd almost forgotten. Evan leaned over the table, his eyes bright. "I knew you'd enjoy this place," he said with that gentle confidence that had come to make me feel so at ease. As the night wore on, we shared stories from our lives, both the joys and the heartbreaks, laughing and leaning closer as the music wove around us. There was an intimacy there I hadn't felt in years, a sense of being truly seen and appreciated. At one point, he reached across the table, his hand resting over mine. I felt a spark, unmistakable and thrilling. I looked up at him, and for the first time, there was no denying the way my heart raced. He held my gaze, his thumb gently tracing circles over my hand, and in that moment, I realized something had shifted between us. Walking me home later, Evan didn't let go of my hand, and I didn't want him to. When we reached my doorstep, he paused, his expression thoughtful yet open. Before I could second-guess myself, I found myself inviting him inside. The moments that followed were tender and heartfelt. In his arms, I felt a warmth and connection I'd missed for so long. A reminder that life still held beautiful surprises, even when least expected. Evan was gentle, patient, and in every touch I felt his sincerity. A shared desire to savor this closeness and the unexpected path that had brought us here. That night, as I lay beside him, I knew that this connection we shared was no longer just friendship. It was something rare and precious, something that made me feel alive in ways I hadn't imagined. The next morning, I awoke with a sense of clarity and a bit of disbelief. The sunlight streaming through my window felt different, brighter somehow, as if the world had shifted overnight. I turned to my side and saw Evan still asleep, his features softened in the morning light. A rush of warmth filled my heart, but it was quickly accompanied by a wave of anxiety. What had I done? A whirlwind of emotions flooded my mind. I had crossed a line I never thought I would, and though it felt exhilarating, I was also terrified. There was a significant age difference between us, over 20 years. What would people think? What would my friends and family say? Would they judge me? Would I even care? As Evan stirred and smiled at me, my heart raced again. But this time it was tinged with uncertainty. He reached for me, pulling me close, and I melted into his embrace, savoring the comfort of his presence. But even in that moment, the weight of societal expectations loomed large in my mind. I had spent so many years conforming to what was considered appropriate behavior for a woman my age. But then I thought of the joy he brought into my life. The laughter, the conversations, the undeniable chemistry that seemed to transcend age. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. I couldn't deny my feelings for him, but the fear of how the world might perceive our relationship crept in like a shadow. Later that day, as I prepared to go to work, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. I looked different, alive, vibrant, even youthful in a way I hadn't felt in years. This was more than just a fling. It was a rediscovery of who I was and what I still desired. I wanted to embrace this, to explore this connection, but the fear of vulnerability nagged at me. How could I allow myself to love someone so much younger, to open my heart when I had spent so long guarding it? I needed to reconcile these conflicting emotions within me. In that moment of reflection, I knew I had a choice to make. To let fear dictate my life, or to embrace the unexpected joy that Evan had brought into it. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but perhaps it was time to challenge those societal norms and follow my heart. Wherever it might lead. As the days passed, I found myself lost in thought, weighed down by the excitement and anxiety swirling within me. My mind raced as I replayed our moments together. His laughter, the way he looked at me with genuine warmth, the tenderness we shared. I was falling for him in ways I hadn't anticipated, and the pull was undeniable. But with each passing day, the fear of societal judgment loomed larger. One evening, after a particularly lovely day spent together, I felt a surge of determination. I wanted more than just fleeting moments with Evan. I wanted to explore this connection without hesitation. I decided to invite him over to my place for dinner. The thought filled me with both excitement and trepidation. What if it went well, and what if it didn't? As I planned the evening, I meticulously prepared every detail. I bought fresh ingredients for his favorite pasta dish, and set the table with my best dishes, hoping to create an atmosphere that was intimate yet welcoming. I even lit a few candles to set the mood. My heart raced at the idea of him stepping through my door, the two of us alone, savoring the time together without the world watching. But then the doubts crept in. What would we talk about? What if I messed everything up? What if I couldn't handle the intensity of my feelings in that close proximity? The possibilities swirled in my mind, a cacophony of fears battling my desire to embrace this budding romance. As the time approached, I found myself pacing around my living room, rehearsing in my head what I might say when he arrived. I wanted to express how much I enjoyed our time together, how he made me feel alive again. But what if I ended up scaring him away? In a moment of clarity, I reminded myself why I wanted this. Evan brought joy into my life, and it was time to honor that. I deserved this, an evening of laughter, good food, and perhaps the chance to explore our connection in a deeper, more meaningful way. With that thought, I took a deep breath, gathered my courage, and sent him a text inviting him over. Hey Evan, I'd love for you to come over for dinner tomorrow night if you're free. I'm making your favorite pasta dish. Smiling face with smiling eyes. As I hit send, I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness wash over me. There was no turning back now. I had taken a step forward into the unknown. I could only hope that what lay ahead would be worth the risk. The next evening arrived, and my nerves danced in my stomach like butterflies. I spent the afternoon preparing for Evan's visit, double-checking the table setting, adjusting the lighting, and replaying the recipes in my head. Each chop of the vegetables felt monumental, as if I were preparing not just a meal, but a moment that could change everything. When the doorbell finally rang, I felt my heart leap. I opened the door to find Evan standing there, a bottle of wine in one hand and a broad smile on his face. "I brought this for us," he said, holding up the wine as if it were the most important gift in the world. "Perfect timing," I replied, taking the bottle and feeling a rush of warmth at his presence. He stepped inside and I closed the door behind him, feeling a sense of excitement ripple through me. As we settled into the evening, the atmosphere felt effortless. We moved around the kitchen together, chatting and laughing as I cooked, Evan eager to help with anything I needed. His presence was calming, and it felt like we had created our own little world, separate from the judgments and expectations of others. Once dinner was ready, we sat down at the table, candles flickering between us. I poured the wine, and we toasted to new friendships and unexpected connections. As we ate, our conversation flowed freely, sharing stories, teasing one another, and delving into our hopes and dreams. I couldn't remember the last time I felt so at ease, so connected to another person. With every shared laugh and every glance, the chemistry between us crackled in the air. It was palpable and intoxicating, and I found myself leaning in closer, drawn to him in a way that felt both exhilarating and frightening. As we moved into dessert, a simple chocolate cake I had baked, Evan looked at me with a spark in his eyes. "You know, I've really enjoyed spending time with you, Diane," he said softly, his voice low and sincere. "You've brought so much joy into my life." His words sent a shiver down my spine. I felt my heart race as I locked eyes with him, feeling an undeniable connection pulsing between us. It was in that moment, surrounded by the warm glow of candlelight and the soft music playing in the background, that everything shifted. Evan reached across the table, his hand brushing against mine, and in that instant, it felt like the world around us faded away. Our laughter quieted, and the air thickened with anticipation. I knew we were standing on the edge of something beautiful and profound, a moment that could change the course of our lives forever. With a tender gaze, he leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "Can I kiss you?" It was an invitation, a shared longing that hung in the air between us. In that moment, all my fears melted away. I nodded, and as his lips met mine, the warmth of the kiss enveloped us both. It was soft and hesitant at first, then deepened as we surrendered to the emotions that had been building between us. The kiss ignited a spark, a promise of what was to come, and in that intimate moment, we both knew we had crossed a threshold into something beautiful and new. As we pulled away from the kiss, I was left breathless, a whirlwind of emotions swirling within me. The intimacy we had just shared felt surreal, as if we had stepped into a realm where age and societal expectations held no power over us. In that moment, all that mattered was the connection we had forged, a bond that transcended the years that separated us. Evan reached for my hand, intertwining our fingers as he looked into my eyes. "I've never felt this way before," he admitted, his voice steady yet filled with wonder. "You make me feel alive in a way I didn't think was possible." I could hardly believe it. This charming, passionate younger man felt the same way I did. My heart swelled at his words, but I also felt a pang of worry. What did this mean for us? Was it simply the thrill of something new? Or could it blossom into something lasting? As we talked, the conversation flowed seamlessly, punctuated by laughter and shared secrets. I couldn't help but reflect on the nature of love and how it evolves with age. My life experiences had taught me resilience, but I had often been left questioning whether love was still possible at my age. Now here I was sitting across from a man who saw me not just as a woman in her 50s, but as someone vibrant and full of life. I realized how much societal norms had dictated my perceptions of love and relationships. The idea that a significant age difference was taboo weighed heavily on my mind, but as Evan spoke passionately about his dreams and desires, it became clear that the essence of love had no boundaries. Age was just a number. The connection we shared was profound, real, and undeniably beautiful. In my heart, I felt the stirrings of hope. This wasn't just a fleeting romance. It felt like a new chapter in my life, one that would allow me to explore my own desires without fear. I had spent too many years stifling my heart, conforming to what others expected of me. But now I felt liberated. As we wrapped up the evening, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the window. A woman who had spent years feeling invisible and alone, now filled with newfound purpose and excitement. I was not just a woman of a certain age. I was vibrant, desirable, and capable of experiencing love in all its forms. Evan stood to clear the table, and as I watched him, I felt a swell of gratitude. He had opened my heart in ways I never thought possible, challenging me to embrace this moment and the emotions that came with it. In that warm, intimate space, I made a promise to myself. I would pursue this connection, not just for me but for both of us. We were embarking on a journey that might defy expectations, but it was ours to explore. With that realization came a deep sense of joy. Love at any age is an adventure, one that deserves to be embraced fully, without hesitation or regret. I wanted to cherish this newfound relationship, to explore the depths of our bond, and to live in the moment, ready for whatever the future might hold. As I stood by the window, watching Evan finish clearing the table, a wave of reflection washed over me. This entire experience had been transformative, opening my eyes to the beauty of unexpected love. I felt alive, invigorated by the connection we shared, and I was determined to nurture it, regardless of the whispers that might follow. Evan returned to the living room, his smile brightening the space around us. I marveled at how such a simple invitation had changed the course of my life. We had shared laughter, secrets, and that electrifying kiss, all of which felt like the beginning of something profoundly significant. "Diane, can I be honest with you?" he asked, his expression turning serious. "I don't want this to end. I've never felt this way about anyone before, and I don't care what others might think." His words struck a chord within me. I felt an overwhelming rush of affection, gratitude, and hope. "Neither do I," I replied softly. "I want to explore this, whatever it may be, without the weight of judgment hanging over us." In that moment, we made an unspoken pact to embrace this journey together, to challenge societal norms and create our own path. Love should never be confined by age. It should be celebrated regardless of when or how it blooms. I had spent so many years living in the shadows of my insecurities, but now I was stepping into the light, ready to claim my happiness. As the evening came to a close, we shared another kiss, one that felt like a promise, a commitment to pursue the extraordinary adventure we had discovered together. My heart was full, and I knew that this was just the beginning. In the days that followed, I allowed myself to revel in the beauty of our connection. We explored new places, shared our dreams, and learned from each other in ways that transcended the age difference. With each passing moment, I realized that love doesn't follow a timeline. It finds us when we least expect it, and encourages us to embrace the depths of our desires. Looking back, I had learned that love at any age is not just possible, but it is vital. It teaches us, transforms us, and reminds us of our capacity for joy. I felt empowered to embrace my desires, to seek happiness without reservations, and to live fully in the present. As I reflected on this journey, I wanted to encourage others to pursue their own happiness, to challenge the barriers imposed by age and societal expectations. Life is too short to live in fear of what others might think. Love is a powerful force, one that deserves to be embraced, celebrated, and cherished, no matter the obstacles that stand in our way. And so, with an open heart and an adventurous spirit, I stepped forward into a new chapter of my life, one filled with love, joy, and the promise of endless possibilities.